Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know?
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
Well,
he made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information.
I cover this White House every day, and I don't know how we got here at the end of the week, but you know it's been a week in Washington when we're talking about aliens again. And it's a topic that has captured the world's attention almost as much as Jeffrey Epstein. So we'll get to that, too, in a second. But after those comments on Air Force One, President Trump jumped online last night and demanded the release of all government UFO files. So on Truth Social, he wrote this, quote, "Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, and unidentified flying objects, or UFOs." So while transparency is something Trump ran and won on in 2024, some members of Congress are questioning the president's timing. Congressman Thomas Massey posting on X, "They've deployed the ultimate weapon of mass distraction, but the Epstein files aren't going away, even for aliens." Meanwhile, Congresswoman Nancy Mace says, why not both? Posting, "Release the Epstein files and the UAP files. We can do both." So with us now is Democratic Virginia Congressman Suhas Subramanyam, the member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, you sit on the House Oversight Committee. Do you believe the president genuinely wants transparency with this UFO file release, or is this about changing the headlines as the Epstein fallout widens here?
I think a lot of this is about changing the headlines. The reality is he's taking a hit, not just from Democrats, but also from Republicans on a lack of transparency, promises not kept when it comes to the Epstein files. And so trying to shift over to another topic that I'm sure they had in their back pocket all along, which is UFOs and aliens, and trying to show that he is a transparent president is probably the move here. And I support him releasing files on UFOs and aliens and what we have. I think the American people deserve to know what's going on. But I think the American people also deserve to know what's in the 2.5 million files that he hasn't released when it comes to Epstein.
And I wanted to play, too, we have where this kind of all started, just to remind people, President Obama, former President Obama's comments on aliens, and then we'll listen to that and come back on the other side.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
So now he's walking back on what he previously said, posting on Instagram, quote, "Let me clarify, the distances between solar systems are so great that the chances we've been visited by aliens is low, and I saw no evidence during my presidency that extraterrestrials have made contact with us." So if Obama's original "aliens are real" comment was off the cuff, but Trump now orders a full disclosure, do you worry this politicizes national security for potential spectacle?
Somewhat. I think the former President Obama was just saying that he thinks that the probability of aliens existing is high. I don't think he was saying that he thinks aliens have visited Earth and have been here many times. I do think there's value, again, in releasing information to the public. We get the question all the time. And so at some point, I think people deserve to know. There's a lot out there already. There's been really well-known documentaries at this point that are shedding light on this. But again, I think, let's release that, but let's also release the Epstein files, and let's just have a transparent administration. They haven't done that yet, and I think that's why we think this is more of a distraction than an actual attempt to be transparent about this issue.
And I know we were talking a little bit about, let's switch gears into the Epstein files. As you're saying, they can release both alien files as well as the Epstein files, you're saying. President Trump also reacted to the arrest of former Prince Andrew just yesterday. I wanted to play that moment, and I wanted to talk more about that on the other side.
I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing to see it, and to see what's going on with his brother, who's obviously coming to our country very soon, and he's fantastic man, the king. So I think it's a very sad thing.
One of your guests for the State of the Union coming up on Tuesday, or really the family of Virginia Giuffre to the State of the Union, I'm curious what their message is to the president.
I think they would tell anyone that this is a shame for the victims, that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor hasn't faced any consequences for his actions over the past few decades. He shows up in the files over and over again, and Virginia Giuffre has pointed to him as a perpetrator in some of these sex trafficking crimes of underage girls. And so for the president to come out and say that he feels bad for Andrew and not say anything about the victims is appalling, which is why I'm inviting her brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife to the State of the Union, because he should face them and look them in the eye and tell them what the victims have gone through and apologize to them for what he just said.
And I've heard from, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in the briefing room saying we're moving on from this story. President Trump saying we're tired of this story. The American people are tired of this story. I'm curious what the family's reaction to you has been to those words that they're hearing from this administration.
Again, the president's saying that he feels bad for some of the alleged perpetrators, and saying nothing about the victims shows where his priorities are. His priorities are to cover up for perpetrators and his friends and people he likes, and not to bring justice and do right by the victims, which is what we're trying to do. And our investigation is not just about the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. They're also about the cover-up, and a decades-long cover-up that spanned multiple administrations. And so the victims deserve better. The American people deserve better. And that's why we're going to continue to push in our investigation and not let it end here.
And really quickly, I know we have a big moment coming up this week with the Clinton testimony. Anything you could tell us about that as you serve on the committee?
Yeah, I have questions for Bill Clinton about his potential association with Jeffrey Epstein. He rode on Epstein's plane as part of his nonprofit. He also had Jeffrey Epstein at the White House multiple times. And so I think he has questions to answer about that. I think Hillary Clinton has limited value to us. That was mostly, I think, a partisan spectacle, but we're entertaining it in the name of bipartisanship. But we're also going to have other testimony this month, like Endyke and Kahn, who are the executors of Epstein's estate. So there's a lot more to come. We're going to get financial documents from the banks as well. So we're not going to stop our investigation, but certainly we're going to talk to the Clintons about what they know, too.
Can you give us a sense of anybody else you plan on calling in to testify, or anybody else that may be subpoenaed?
I want everyone who was named as a co-conspirator. I want everyone who was not a victim, who is clearly engaged in some form of wrongdoing. And I want anyone who had intimate knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's estate. I've asked for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to come and talk to us. I've asked for Peter Mendelsohn, the former ambassador to the United States, to come. And all the folks who have been named now and whose names are out there, sure, they can lose their board seats and they can lose their titles, but we want them to cooperate in our investigation as well if they want to clear their name.
Congressman Suhas Subramanyam, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.